What's good, y'all? I've got some sweet buffs for both Plusle and Minun. For those competitively minded players, pun not intended, if you're looking at this, you might be thinking, oh my god, Plusle is still better than Minun. He didn't fix, the fact that Plusle is better than Minun. Speed boost is so much better than stamina, especially on a frail Pokemon. Why would you ever use stamina? If you listen to the whole video, I will get to that. I promise stamina is a great ability for Minun because this is a ROM hack where you're playing against AI, all right? You're not playing against real players who will switch out and not spam moves on you that give you stamina boosts. And of course competitive is a great ability with that infinite usability capsule in the context of this ROM hack, because competitive has been inadvertently buffed. Competitive and Defiant have been inadvertently buffed because of the addition of all of these new attacks that will always drop your stats. So tons of new moves here always drop attack and special attack, as you can see on screen. Tons of new moves here always drop defense or special defense, and then tons of new moves also drop speed. So switch on any of those, you get a free +2 special attack, and now you're big chillin'. So you look at the trainer sheets, you see if any of these moves are popping up, you see if you can get your Plusle or Minun on the field, and then you use that, especially for very early on in the game, because like for example, these guys will be most likely caught like on early Akala Island for the first time they'll show up. For that point in the game, like these moves are really common. Later on, they're not as common for the player to use, for the AI to use. For the player, they're still great, but for the AI, it's not as great because not only are the crit moves running around everywhere, but also the player can always switch out to negate the stat drops while the AI doesn't switch out without switch moves. But before I get into any more buffs and changes, as you just saw on screen, there's a very detailed move sheet where you can check out all 600 plus move buffs and changes in this hack. There are immense move buffs and changes in this hack. Super important. You can give those a look. It's linked right down below in the description. You're doing yourself a huge disservice by not checking it out. So yeah, I highly recommend you give that a look. With that being said, though, these guys are super great. Logically, I picked some really nice and fitting abilities. Competitive, very fitting for these cheerleaders. And then I gave Plusle a purely offensive ability. They used to have Hustle with base 70 attack. Hustle was actually massively buffed in this hack, and Hustle with base 70 attack is pretty strong, very strong actually, but it felt kind of underwhelming. And so I figured, let's actually give them speed boost instead, which isn't anything broken, despite the fact that it has crazy setup moves like Nasty Plot and Calm Mind, because of the addition of very common priority attacks in this ROM hack, especially First Impression, which will be, a mainstay on pretty much every single boss fight. Also, this is the wrong color. But every single boss fight, for the most part, will have First Impression at least once or twice show up. So that will negate any, frailer, faster, sweeper Pokemon from, 6-0ing the trainer, especially if you're playing a hardcore Nuzlocke. You don't want to just sack your Plusle and get a couple kills with speed boost. But if you are doing a casual playthrough, then yeah, you can go ahead, click Nasty Plot speed boost turn 1 and get like 3 kills and then die, the second the First Impression mount comes in. But and of course there are Pokemon that will outspeed you naturally before the speed boost, all that type of stuff is something to consider. There's natural speed is pretty damn good. However, you're not guaranteed plus speed, nature, or max speed IVs. But I want to not ramble about other stuff, so I'm going to quickly touch on a couple moves, and then I want to get into the stamina stuff, because I know a lot of people might think it's kind of bad on Minun. But what am I trying to say? Charming Kiss, that is a signature move that drops, well, not signature, it's exclusive to these two guys, Jinx and Aromatisse. It's basically a 100% accurate sleep move, but it also drops attack by -2, so it's like Charm and Spore in one move, so that's super great. They also get Enchantment, which is essentially Geomancy, but it only gives +1 speed. Like I said, setup sweeping in general in this hack is not that great. I would recommend playing them a little bit differently. I would say Plusle with speed boost, like you can either use to outspeed things you normally wouldn't outspeed, which is really useful, and then you can switch out when the priority mono comes in. Just switch out, because you can't even use Protect on First Impression anymore. That's something that's worth noting. First Impression will also always crit, so that does hurt Minun with Stamina, but it's not the end of the world, because Minun with Stamina can cheese the AI very nicely, because again, you're not playing against a real player, you're playing against AI. And so what you can do is you can switch in on like a special attacking Pokemon and rack up +6 stamina boosts, because you do have access to a lot of healing moves. You have Draining Kiss and Parabolic Charge, as well as Recharge and Wish. Recharge functions essentially like Charge, but it heals you by 1/3 HP, so that's a pretty great option. But whichever one of those 4 moves you decided to use for your heal move, for example, Assault Vest plus this Draining Kiss plus Parabolic Charge would be super great. Either one of the two, you don't need to use both, but either one of those 2 moves with Assault Vest, you switch in on a special attacker, you are taking very little damage from their special attacks, especially if they're like weaker, because you can always optimize the matchup and send it in at the right time, and then you can rack up 3, 4, 5 special defense boosts, or sorry, physical defense boosts, excuse me, and now you kill whatever's in front of you, and now a physical attacker comes in, assuming it doesn't have First Impression, If it does have priority, if it's not first impression, it won't crit you. So you're tanking the hell out of that with the +3, or even +1 defense. You're super tanky, let alone +2, +3, +4. So point is, stamina is very easy to exploit. The AI with speed boost, while still exploitable, especially for non-Nuzlockers, is not nearly as easy to cheese anymore because of the priority moves, because of stuff like Prankster, not Prankster, a priority Heart Swap, priority Topsy-Turvy, priority Roar and Whirlwind, etc. flying around in this hack to prevent setup sweeping. So not like it'll be impossible. You just got to be a lot smarter. Like Plusle can still totally sweep, especially with like Z Enchantment later on. Not Z Enchantment, excuse me. Power Herb Enchantment with speed boost. Competitive is still great throughout the game, especially on well, it's good on both of them. I was gonna say on Plusle because for a second I thought it was faster, but no, they're both the same speed. So yeah, very solid abilities. Very, very good and fun to use. Logic-wise, speed boost for Plusle, it's the more energetic of the two, and it's kind of like this cheerleader. It's like boosting itself up, making itself faster. While Minun is the more defensive, supportive of the two. So stamina, it's like cheering, right? It's a cheerleader, so it's like constantly cheering. I feel like it should have the stamina to keep cheering. I think it's pretty cute and a cool little idea. I think there's even a couple of deck entries that allude to like something to do with stamina, but I just think it fits their vibe. The more defensive cheerleader has stamina, the more offensive one has speed boost. Yeah, even barrier is pretty great as well. Assuming there's no crit moves on the opponent's team. There usually will be at least one, but you can always just outspeed and knock out the crit move Pokemon if it's slower than you, because you are still pretty quick. You're still pretty quick and pretty strong as Minun. It's not like it's weak or anything. You have very high base power stab moves like well, Revelation is pretty cool. That's the same power as Thunderbolt, but it gives you a 1 in 2 chance to boost special attack. Zap Cannon and Floor Cannon are just absolute nukes, 150 base power. I kind of want to remove Floor Cannon actually, because they have Radiant Outburst anyways, but Zap Cannon is essentially electric type Draco Meteor, while Radiant Outburst and Electric Outburst are even stronger versions of that, with less PP, however, but they are absolute nukes. They are 180 base power and drop their special attack stat by 4, so those are really fun. Just remove Floor Cannon from both of them. It's all kind of arbitrary. I give it to like pretty much every special fairy type, but sometimes I just feel kind of weird giving it, especially if they already have Radiant Outburst or like another stab move that does the same thing, then I feel like I don't have to give it to them as much. But yeah, overall, great buffs and changes for these guys. Electro Ball is also awesome, especially on Plusle. Electro Ball will give you +1 speed now. So essentially, after one turn, Plusle will have +2 speed with Electro Ball plus speed boost, and the Electro Ball will actually start doing some pretty crazy damage on that second turn. It's also good for Minun just to boost your speed up in general. You can use it with Nasty Plot or Calm Mind. You have great coverage moves like widespread coverage moves in this hack, like Aura Sphere and Psychic and Shadow Ball and Energy Ball, and of course, Electric Fairy Dual Stab is really nice as well, and you can always teach specific coverage moves to, tackle certain boss fights. Additionally, Lucky Chant and Baton Pass are especially good on both Plusle and Minun. Minun can Baton Pass defense boosts, while Plusle can Baton Pass speed boosts. Keep in mind that Baton Pass is negative priority now, just for balancing reasons, and also it's like making it kind of just to make it into a pseudo teleport. They have other great support moves like Encore, Buff to Nuzzle, which drops attack, special attack, and paralyzes. Again, Charming Kiss late game is incredible. Enchantment is incredible. Stored Power, Speed Boost, Enchantment is like wicked. You're doing big damage at that point. But sweeping in general is a lot harder to pull off, so you got to be careful. You could totally just run both of these two under Psychic Surge if you have a Psychic Surge Mon rather, but like, you're not always going to have that, which is kind of why the hack is balanced around hardcore Nuzlocks, specifically Team Lock Nuzlocks. But if you did get lucky enough to get one of those Mons, then yeah, you can go ahead and use a lot of OP setup sweepers and not have to worry about priority. However, that only lasts for a set amount of turns, so you still aren't guaranteed to like get that off forever. Lucky Chant is pretty cool though. Lucky Chant is a priority move that has +4 priority, so that's actually the same priority as First Impression in this hack. So what you can do is you can Lucky Chant versus a faster First Impression Mon, or you can just Lucky Chant on the lead, and then once you kill whatever's in front of you, basically you can Lucky Chant, right? Lucky Chant last minute. So essentially you come in on a special attacker, you heal up a bunch, you get a bunch of stamina boosts, and then right before you're about to knock out the Pokemon in front of you, you click Lucky Chant, then you finish them off. Now, say you have a good amount of HP left, and now the Pokemon that would normally come in and click First Impression on you can't crit you with First Impression anymore. Therefore, you will be taking very little damage because of the defense boosts. Another thing I didn't mention yet is that Fairy no longer resists Bug in this hack, which is why I've been mentioning First Impression a bunch. If you resisted it, it wouldn't be nearly as much of an issue for either of them, because you could potentially live it with some HP investment. Although, honestly, with all of the strong-ass Pokemon running around with Hustle and Technician and Ruthless boosted First Impressions and all these strong Bug types, you'd probably still die in a lot of cases, but especially now you're not living strong first impressions for sure without, you know, a lot of defense investment and HP investment, which you could do for certain boss fights. It also depends on your ivories and your nature. You know, if you got a plus defense nature, for example, it's pretty cool. As a whole, all these two would both be super fun to use. Both are super viable. I know that the Plusle still might just look better because like oh my Unga Bunga speed boost, you know, like I get it. But Minun has genuine use over Plusle and is also just a lot more fun to use. And yeah, because of all the priority moves, I would say Minun genuinely has use over Plusle. You also have great utility, like I said earlier, even stuff like Charm and Befriend and all these other great moves. So yeah, they're not just like offensive mons, they're great support mons, as they always, well, at least what they were supposed to be before. So yeah, also the typing, I didn't even cover that yet. They're the only ones alongside the Dene and Tapu Koko, so it's very cool fitting, or at least vaguely fitting dual typing for them to make them a lot better, you know, give them that dual stab, differentiate them from the pure electric types in the hack and all that stuff. So yeah, I appreciate you listening this far into the video. Shout out to you. I'll be back for more buffs and changes coming up. Peace, y'all.